While Rome built its empire in the west, the Han Dynasty was creating an equally vast civilization in the east, largely unknown to Rome. It ruled more people than Rome, shaped Chinese bureaucracy for 2,000 years, invented paper, expanded the Silk Road, and built philosophies still influencing billions today. Chinese people still call themselves Han. To understand the Han, you need to understand what came before. For centuries, China was a fractured landscape of competing kingdoms, the Warring States period, roughly from 475 to 221 BC, a time of near constant warfare, but also extraordinary intellectual ferment. This was the era of Confucius, Mencius, Laozi, and Sun Tzu, thinkers whose ideas about governance, ethics, and strategy would echo for millennia. In 221 BC, the king of Qin Yingzheng conquered all rival states and declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China. His achievements were staggering: standardized weights, measures, and writing across the empire, a vast road network, and the beginning of what would become the Great Wall. But his methods were brutal book burnings, mass executions of scholars, forced labor on a colossal scale. The Qin dynasty collapsed just 15 years after his death in 206 BC. Out of the civil war that destroyed Qin emerged an unlikely victor, Liu Bang, a low-ranking village official with no aristocratic pedigree. In 202 BC, he defeated his rivals, declared himself Emperor Gaozu, and founded the Han Dynasty. His success is one of history's remarkable social mobility stories, and it shaped Han ideology from the start. The early Han emperors were pragmatic. Gaozu reduced taxes, scaled back the Qin's harsh legalist policies, and allowed the economy to recover. His successor, Emperor Wen and Emperor Jing, continued this cautious approach. By the time Emperor Wu Wudi came to power in 141 BC, China had accumulated enough wealth and stability to begin its great expansion. Emperor Wu reigned for 54 years, one of the longest reigns in Chinese history, and transformed the Han from a recovering state into a true empire. He pushed Han territory north into Manchuria, south into Vietnam, and west deep into Central Asia, roughly doubling the empire's size. At its height, Han China covered approximately 6 million square kilometers and governed perhaps 60 million people, comparable to Rome at its peak. To fund his campaigns, Wu reformed the economy. The state took control of salt and iron production, two essential commodities, and introduced a new monetary system. He also made a decision that would define Chinese civilization for 2,000 years. He adopted Confucianism as the official state ideology and established the Imperial Academy, the Taixu, to train officials in Confucian classics. This was the birth of the Chinese civil service examination system, the idea that government posts should be filled by educated, meritocratic officials rather than hereditary aristocrats. It was a revolutionary concept that China would refine and expand for the next 2 millennia, and which influenced bureaucratic thinking across Asia and eventually the world. Emperor Wu sent his envoy Zhang Qian westward in 139 BC on a diplomatic mission to find allies against the nomadic Xiongnu Confederacy. Zhang Qian returned with something more valuable than any military alliance: detailed knowledge of the civilizations of Central Asia, Persia, and the distant lands beyond. What followed was the opening of the Silk Road, the network of trade routes connecting China to the Mediterranean world. Chinese silk, lacquerware, and bronze flowed west. Glass, wool, gold, and horses flowed east. Ideas, religions, and diseases traveled in both directions. Buddhism entered China along these routes. So did plague. The Silk Road was not just a commercial network, it was the world's first sustained system of globalization. Roman writers knew of the Seers, the Silk people of the Far East. Han records mention Da Qin Great Qin, their term for Rome. Two empires at opposite ends of the world, aware of each other's existence, connected by silk and camel caravans across thousands of kilometers of steppe and desert. The Han period was an era of remarkable invention. Cai Lun is credited with standardizing the production of paper around 105 AD, one of the most transformative technologies in human history, which would not reach Europe for another 1,000 years. Han astronomers produced detailed star catalogs. Han physicians developed acupuncture and systematic medical texts. Han engineers built seismoscopes and water-powered mills. But like Rome, Han China carried the seeds of its own decline. Court factionalism, land inequality, peasant rebellions. Most devastatingly, the Yellow Turban Rebellion of 184 D, and the growing power of regional warlords tore the empire apart. The Han Dynasty formally ended in 220 AD, fragmenting into the Three Kingdoms period. The Han Dynasty lasted over 400 years longer than the Western Roman Empire. It unified a civilization, built a bureaucratic state, opened the world's first global trade network, and produced inventions whose effects are still felt today. But perhaps its most enduring legacy is invisible. The idea that China is one civilization, one people, one continuous story. The Han forged that identity with Confucian education, standardized writing, and shared governance. And that identity survived every subsequent dynasty, every invasion, every century of fragmentation. Rome gave the West its law, its language, its church. Han China gave East Asia its writing, its philosophy, its bureaucratic model. Two empires, two opposite ends of the world, both peaking at roughly the same moment, and both casting shadows that reach all the way to the present. The Han called their empire Tianxia, all under heaven. They weren't wrong.